All right. Well, let me know what questions you have. It sounds like you're deciding between an MPH or going straight for the PhD. But yeah, happy to answer and also just discuss where you're at.
But yeah, so I think that experience really kind of ignited that like interest in like research for me. And I was like, oh yeah, if you definitely, and then I was like hearing that like if you want to go deeper into like doing research, kind of like PhD is like the really research heavy like degree program to get into. So I was like, oh, like I'm getting like more interested in doing a PhD. But I know like some people go through the master's beforehand, some people get like do some gap years beforehand. I know eventually I want to do a PhD, but I'm just like not too sure like in terms of how ready I am or like how do you like figure that out?
Yeah, no, those are all good questions. It sounds like you have a really great research background. It's cool that you our research interests overlap as well. So we should definitely stay in touch and talk about that, more moving forward as well. Um, yeah, that's a big question though. Like, I guess what specifically do you have questions about in terms of like where? Like, are you planning to apply the cycle? Like, where are you at exactly with applying for programs?
Yeah, definitely. I think I started like kind of getting around into like the PhD like application um like this cycle, but I think I'm like not gonna like I'm applying to just a handful just to kind of like feel the waters. But I think I really want to be able to like apply more committedly like the next year or the year after. But I think like getting started now kind of got me like have reaching out to people who've been to like the PhD program or like are currently in the PhD program. So a lot of what I've been doing like this summer and this fall was like conducting like informational interviews just to kind of see like how the process is like and what the experience is like. I haven't like reached out to like potential mentors yet, but that's something that I definitely want to do like in the next cycle. And then I've also like am finishing up applications for like the master's programs as well.
Okay, so it sounds like this cycle you're applying to some master's programs, some PhDs. You're going to see what that yields, and then depending if it doesn't yield in something that you want to pursue, you'll apply kind of more rigorously next fall. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's kind of like where I am right now.
Okay. I think that's a fair approach. I've heard of a lot of students do that too, if they're unsure if they want to do a certain type of master's program or a doctoral program, that they just kind of apply to a nice smattering and see kind of what happens because you never know. And then, I definitely think that you will get into your master's programs, like, no doubt, like based on your background and what you just described to me. So I think that that's not a question. Like, I applied to my master's programs and I had no research experience, barely any public health experience, and was like working corporate jobs for 2 years. So like, I think your background and, experience that you're bringing is much more intense than what I had. So I think you're gonna have no problem getting into your MPH or master's programs that you're applying to. PhD definitely will be a little bit, more question mark. I mean, if the programs sit at a school of public health, a lot of them do sort of like want you to have a master's. They want you to. They don't require you to have a master's in public health or some kind of master's degree before coming in. Um, you will retake all the same mass. I mean, I got my MPH and then at Yale, and then I got to Harvard. They're like, you still have to take epi, you still have to take biostats, you still have to do all this stuff. So, I mean, you'll get the coursework regardless. But in terms of like admission, like that was something that they were like, you generally like need a master's in order to get in. But I had a handful of, people in my cohort and other cohorts after me get in straight from without a master's degree. So I think I always tell everyone this is that applying to PhD programs is truly a numbers game, and there's a lot of luck that goes into it too. So you could have all the pieces in the equation, or not have all the pieces in the equation, and there's still no way to tell like what might happen from there. So As long as you're open-minded, which it sounds like you are, and you have, you're not just telling me like I'm applying to two programs and that's it. And it sounds like you're giving yourself options, which is great. So yeah, I don't you came to me with questions, but it sounds like you kind of have a great plan in place. So I don't really know how I can help you. So if you have any really specific questions about the application process, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually curious because when you talked about like the courses, like did you find them like repetitive or did you feel like that was like necessary or like to take those classes again in Harvard, like during your PhD program? Did you find those useful or was it like a little bit repetitive? I guess just like what was your experience with that?
I would say that some of it was repetitive, but I would say that in a PhD program, when I was doing my MPH, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was taking a lot more like community health program evaluate, like qualitative courses, which are still really helpful for me now. But when I got to my PhD program, I was like, half, if not more than half of all my courses were like really heavy statistics, biostatistics, quant, epi courses. So I really challenged myself, or it was very challenging for me who came from barely taking any quantitative courses in my master's to suddenly jump to like having to take so many quantitative courses during my PhD. But it did give me a lot of skills and knowledge that I'm still using to this day. Like, I think as a master's in public health, if that's kind of like what you end up just doing, you don't really need all the quant. But if you're going to go get a PhD, like, you definitely need the quant skills. So I would say that um, some of it was duplicated, like taking epi 4 times, because I took it at UC Berkeley for undergrad, then I took it at Yale, then I took it again. Like, that started feeling repetitive, but it was still a little different every time I learned it. And it only strengthened, I think, my knowledge of it. And yeah, I would say that that's the case. So
I think
some
it's super cool.
courses,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like super cool how you're able to like complement it from like your master's and then to your PhD, just kind of like making sure it's like complementing your academic foundation.
And you do get to choose what courses you take. So just don't choose the same ones that you've taken before. That's not what you want to do. I mean, I was also just so sick of being in coursework. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, what are the kind of like classes that I feel like I don't want to use the word easy, but just like classes that like I would find interesting or provide me a skill or not be too difficult, because I'm just trying to get my credits done so I can move on to my, research years.
Right. Yeah, I think another thing I was curious about was kind of like where you were in terms of research when you were like applying to a PhD program. I know like you've taken in the summer like at Stanford an internship where you're currently doing your postdoctorate. So I was just like curious as to like kind of um I guess like how much of a role did that play into in terms of your research direction? And then also like I guess in terms of specificity, like how specific were your research directions when you were applying? And then sorry, this is another question. And then how did it evolve like while you were in your PhD?
Yeah, that's a very long question. So if I forget to answer any part, just let me know. But
Yeah, no
to
worries.
start off, I didn't have a lot of research experience when I applied to my PhD. I don't think it's about quantity, but it's quality. So I had a really, really short summer internship, a couple of months. But I really, went in depth when I was talking about how impactful that experience was for me and what I was able to achieve in such a short period of time and focused my personal statement on that. And, that's what got me to where I am through all my program. Got me into all of the programs I got into. Um, in terms of the research idea, yes, like I kind of propose, like, yeah, based on kind of the research I did over the summer, this would be where I see my research going. But, you know, once you actually get into the program, like things change. Like what you were writing about a year, 2 years ago, because you don't like propose your dissertation to like, you don't start putting together your dissertation ideas until like your year two of your PhD. And a lot could change, from then to like when you put together your application. And you also want to be like putting together an idea that's innovative and relevant to like what's happening in the field at that time. So, for me, when I was putting together my personal statement, I talked about like, oh, I'm going to look at adolescent vaping and social media and all that stuff, which I still look at. That's still a big part of the research that I do. But my dissertation focused on the co-use of tobacco and cannabis among adolescents because that was just something that I was interested in looking at cannabis use because more and more states were legalizing it recreationally. And like that was just like what, when talking to my mentors, they were like, yeah, this is kind of going to be the next big thing because of, policy changes and all that. So I was like, okay, that's what I want to do my dissertation on. And that's kind of still what I'm focusing a good amount of my postdoctoral research on. So things can change. I mean, I still do social media research on the side, but I think that it's totally okay to propose an idea and you do not absolutely, no one's gonna make you sign a paper saying that what you wrote about in your PhD application is what you end up having to do later on.
Right. Did you also have like specific like methods you had in mind in terms of like going about like that exploration? Like I know you said about like adolescent vaping and like social media as like research interest. Did you also like have specific like methods in mind in going about it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was vague, but I was like, yeah, I mean, I have a strong training in qualitative research, so I'll use that. And then, the quant skills that I gained through the PhD program, I'll like put that together. But I wasn't like, I'm going to use like, multinomial models to look at, different outcomes of vaping. It wasn't that specific.
Okay, got it. I see. Also, I was curious as to like in terms of the format of like your personal statement, like I know some people kind of talk about like their individual like research experiences and kind of how they gain like specific like methods and then how they want to apply those methods into a specific topic. Other ones were more like a discussion of a research topic and kind of how their like experiences were like kind of added to that discussion that they had. I guess just like I was like curious as to like what your personal approach was and also like any takes that you have like or any advice that you have for people going about it.
So I just made a video about do's and don'ts for your statement of purpose. So you should take a look at that. It's my latest video that I made. But that's a really good question. So I think um, so if it's just like the main statement of purpose that the school is asking for, it's definitely more of the former of what you just said. Like it should just be a very detailed narrative of your research, what you learned, what skills you gained, how that's gonna, like why that's gonna propel you and your field forward.
Mm,
Some schools like Harvard are now, or the Harvard School, I think all of Harvard actually, are now requiring a second statement that's called like a personal statement. You can
mm.
almost think of this as like they're it's almost like some schools asking for a diversity statement in a way. I don't know, but that would be more of the latter. So like how have your personal experiences, including, your life experiences, made you who you are? And, a little bit tying that into like why you are passionate about pursuing the career, the research that you want to do. Um, but not all schools require that kind of a statement. So if it's just the general, like, why do you want to get a PhD? Like, or what have you done that has like made you qualified to get a PhD, whatever, then it's the traditional, like, you just talk about your research in depth.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I think I've seen like certain applications, like what you said, they just had like one statement of purpose, but some of them have like a statement of purpose and personal statement. And then I've seen like they wanted the personal statement to kind of complement the like statement of purpose and kind of like how does that work out?
Yeah. And you still want to put a little bit of personality in your statement of purpose, like even though it is going to be sort of like your detailed research experience, like I always say put some personality in it, something special because you want to stand out because if the application reviewers are just looking at like personal statements all day and they all are just about research, like when you put a little pop of who you are in it, it comes out and you want to stand out in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Actually, this is more of a personal question, but I just was curious as to like kind of where do you see your PhD like taking you? I know you're currently like a postdoctorate. So I was just like curious as to like where do you see like your next steps and how do you see your PhD like training you for that?
I mean, I want to become a professor, and I wrote about this in my personal statement, or sorry, statement of purpose, whatever you want to call it. The statement that I use to apply for PhD programs, and I'm still, on that journey, is that, I'm passionate about both teaching and research, so I want to become a professor and do both. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I think like I've seen kind of the work that you did at like APHA recently. And it's like super cool like to be able to like showcase your research and kind of seeing how it would like train you or prepare you for like your career goals. I was also I think the last thing I wanted to ask was just kind of like would you recommend like doing a master's first? Or like I know some people kind of take like a gap year to do more like research oriented like roles. So I was just like curious as to kind of like if you had like a take on that, or like any advice regarding that.
I always think it's great to get more experience. Um, PhD is it is an intense experience, and I think being able to go into it with with some kind of work experience or grad school experience, it does help, but at the same time, like I also understand that you want to keep the momentum going. So if you can get into a program and not have to work more years and go to more school, master's programs are expensive, financially. So that's something to consider as well. Go for it. So I think that's up to you, and kind of what cards you are dealt, as you apply to programs and what's offered to you and what you get into, and you can kind of decide then like what is the best path moving forward. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, and no matter which path you choose, there's going to be its ups and downs. So I'm sorry that this is probably not the very straightforward answer that you were hoping for, but I think it just depends. And I think there's no wrong way to go about it. It's going to be, trust me, academia, grad school, all of this, it's going to be a journey. It's going to have its ups and downs no matter what road you take. So there's no wrong road, but just be ready for lots of things to happen. And um, there's nothing that I think you could go either way, really.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I think just like one last thing was just like in terms of like gaining that research experience like during your master's, I guess just like how did you go about in like finding those opportunities, like being able to like work at Stanford and like gaining that like research internship experience? Like I guess just like how did you like find those experiences?
Old emailing. That's still to this day what I do to make connections. Don't be afraid to just email someone and ask if they have opportunities for you to help out with their research. So cold email. Professors' emails are all available pretty publicly online. So I would cold email. Once you get to, if you're a master's student somewhere or even a PhD student, professors are always, I know at Yale, like at the beginning of every semester, they would actually send all of the master's students like a list of paid and unpaid research assistantship jobs to the department, to all the master's students. And then you could just, warmly reach out to those professors being like, hey, I know you're looking for a research assistant. I'd love to help you on this project. So I think that you will find that it is much easier to find research opportunities than you think. I think it's just getting over that like intimidating, okay, like sometimes you have to be the one to reach out and look for the opportunity, but there are so many people who have so much grant money and don't know what to do with it and need help, working on their data, and, writing it up or analyzing it. So there will be no shortage of opportunities for you to find research.
Okay, that's really good to hear. Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna like, try to add like the cold emailing onto like my to-do list. Um, and like try to find some research experiences. So thank you, thank you. I think that's kind of all of the questions that I have. So thank you so much for like sharing like your experiences and like the insights that you have. I think I like feel a lot more motivated to like, like do those applications, to do those cold emailings and like finding those opportunities. So thank you, Jessica.
No, I'm so glad. And you got this. I know it's a lot, but this is a really, you're asking the right questions, you're putting in all the work. Like I said, I feel like you already knew a lot before coming into this call and had a great plan in place. So just keep working forward, moving forward with that plan. I'm always here. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, thank you so much, Jessica.